Last week, the White House issued an executive order completely cutting off financial assistance to the country.
Trump has quietly pulled the plug on Africa. No more aid, no more guarantees, and no more boots on the ground. No speeches, no warning. Just a silent withdrawal wrapped in the language of efficiency and burden sharing. But why now? And is Trump making a mistake? Let's find.
Welcome to One Africa News, your premier source for news and current affairs from across the continent. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and turn on notification to stay up to date with the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us reach more people. They said Africa would always be under their control. They said no African leader would dare challenge the West. But today, those powers have been humbled. Because one young man, Ibrahim Traoré, has risen. And he's not just resisting the West. He's leading Africa to Russia and China on Africa's terms. This is the beginning of a new global power shift. In just 2 years, 36-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traoré has transformed Burkina Faso from a forgotten former colony into a bold symbol of African sovereignty. Traoré recently stunned the world by leading a high-powered African delegation to Moscow and Beijing. Alongside Mali, Niger, and Guinea, he signed groundbreaking deals, military, economic, and technological. His message to the West? Africa is not your playground anymore. The African lion has awakened. But why is Africa turning away from the US, France, and the IMF? Because for decades, these institutions offered loans, only to trap countries in debt. They promised peace, but delivered coups. They claimed partnership, but maintained control. From uranium-rich Niger to gold-laden Burkina Faso, Western companies got rich, while African people got nothing. Now, African nations are saying, no more military bases, no more puppet governments, no more economic slavery. In this bold new era, Traoré isn't standing alone. Russia is offering military training, intelligence sharing, and defense technology. China is building roads, railways, hospitals, and investing billions in African infrastructure. Together, a new trilateral pact is forming. Africa, Russia, China. It's more than diplomacy. It's a blueprint for total independence from Western control. From mineral wealth to digital banking, Africa is seizing control of its own future. The West didn't see this coming. After being kicked out of key bases in Niger and Mali, after losing resource contracts in Burkina Faso, after failing to sway public opinion, the US and France are now scrambling for relevance. Antony Blinken and Macron have held emergency talks. But it's too late. The tide has turned. The world is watching the empire fall, not with war, but with unity. Traoré's vision goes far beyond borders. He's calling for a Pan-African military alliance, a joint African digital currency, and African control over African resources. Young people across the continent are answering that call. From Dakar to Dar es Salaam, a revolution is rising. It's not about East versus West. It's about Africa, standing tall on its own feet. The old world order is collapsing. A new Africa is emerging, bold, independent, unshackled, and leading that charge is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. To the West, this is your humiliation. To Africa, this is your moment. The world is watching. The time is now. Africa is rising. This is One Africa News Network. Like, comment, and share this truth. Because the world needs to hear the African voice, louder than ever before.
You leave the table, so others come chasing you. But Africa didn't chase. It simply turned to the next available option. In many regions, that meant forming new security pacts, leaning harder on regional forces, or in some cases, yes, dealing with China, Russia, or Turkey. Trump thought he was holding leverage by walking away. In reality, he walked off the stage, and the show continued without him. Take Niger, where the US once operated one of its most advanced drone bases at Agadez. When the Nigerian military leadership shifted and the US packed up its assets, it wasn't just a logistical move. It was meant as a message. Without us, your security collapses. But that message didn't land. Niger's government didn't beg for the base to stay. They started looking east. They opened their doors to Russian advisors. They explored military technology deals with Ankara. They began asking harder questions. If American drones had been here for years, why did insurgency still spread? That's the uncomfortable part of Trump's miscalculation. The absence of results means there's no loyalty to the brand. For years, the US helped train African soldiers, provided some tech and tactical knowledge, and ran war games like African Lion. But results? On the ground, the insurgencies outpaced the training. Local commanders often found American support slow, fragmented, and tangled in red tape. So when Trump withdrew forces, local armies didn't feel the sting of betrayal. They felt the weight of reality. They had always been alone. Now they just stopped pretending otherwise. And that's where Trump's strategy implodes. He wanted to shift the burden to African states without ever admitting how little actual burden he had carried. The Pentagon could boast 6,000 personnel in Africa, but spread across 50-plus nations. Most were trainers, intel liaisons, or logistics officers. It looked impressive on PowerPoint. On the battlefield, it meant little. So now, as US presence fades, African militaries aren't failing in Trump's absence. They're failing at the same rate they were when he was still there. That's not a defense of their struggles. It's an indictment of Washington's overinflated self-importance. Trump thought pulling troops would make African leaders nervous. But in many capitals, Accra, Bamako, Luanda, the sentiment wasn't fear. It was clarity. Clarity that the US had never been a dependable security partner. Clarity that new arrangements were needed. Clarity that African solutions must come from within the continent, not from a far-off capital whose interest comes and goes with election cycles. But here's the twist. Trump's retreat doesn't mean America has no footprint. It means it has no control. Wherever the US once had a strong grip, local forces are now improvising. Some are cooperating with Wagner. Others are forming neighborhood alliances. Others are simply trying to hold ground until a better offer comes along. The strategic discipline the US once imposed, even if inconsistently, is evaporating. And that chaos, it won't knock on Trump's door right away, but it will come. Because the thing about security vacuums is, they don't stay empty. Trump thought he was saving face by pulling back. Instead, he's watching his influence unravel. Not through confrontation, but through quiet irrelevance. Africa didn't need to revolt. It just needed to stop waiting for American approval. So now the map is changing. Not dramatically, not violently, but steadily, and not in Trump's favor. And that leads us to a harder truth. If Trump can't dictate the terms anymore, who can? So Trump walked off the table, expecting the game to fall apart. But here's the twist. The table didn't flip. It just got bigger. And now there are new players, different currencies, different rules. And Africa, once seen as the prize, is learning how to deal the cards. That's the part Washington didn't see coming. Because yes, Russia is circling. Yes, China is building. But something else is happening too. African governments aren't just picking sides between global powers anymore. They're negotiating with them, playing them off one another, signing deals with one hand while rewriting contracts with the other. And it's not chaos, it's strategy. Trump's exit didn't freeze the continent in uncertainty. It accelerated its political learning curve. Look at Burkina Faso. After France and the US lost their sway, the government didn't collapse. It consolidated. Military leadership under Ibrahim Traoré didn't just kick out foreign forces. It replaced them with bilateral cooperation tailored to its terms. Russian advisors were welcomed, but not worshipped. Local industries were prioritized. African alliances like the Alliance of Sahel States AES emerged, not as Western puppets or Eastern proxies, but as declarations of autonomy. This is what's unfolding across the map. In Ethiopia, the government flirts with Chinese financing while refusing to give up sovereignty over its internal security. In Senegal, Western-backed democratic institutions coexist with increasing Gulf-funded economic zones. In South Africa, BRICS membership doesn't mean ideological loyalty. It means bargaining power. This is Africa's new diplomacy. Non-alignment as leverage. The world expected Africa to choose a side, east or west. What they didn't expect was for Africa to start writing its terms. And that's where Trump's absence becomes a liability, not for Africa, but for Trump himself. By removing America's influence, he's removed America's options. The continent hasn't stopped making deals. It's just stopped asking permission. And what's filling the space isn't chaos, it's confidence. That confidence isn't always stable. It's sometimes wrapped in authoritarianism. It can come with populism or coups or radical shifts, but it's rooted in something real. A generation of African leaders and civil actors who no longer see Washington as the center of gravity. This isn't just about military partnerships or foreign bases. It's about who gets to define the narrative. In the past, U.S. embassies dictated talking points. Today, regional broadcasters, online influencers, and local Pan-African media shape the conversation. African youth don't wait for CNN to tell them what matters. They see the world through WhatsApp threads, encrypted chats, and streets buzzing with anti-imperialist slogans. And that matters more than most policymakers in D.C. understand. Because when Trump pulled out...
Thank you for watching One Africa News. Kindly subscribe and stay up to date with our latest news updates. Like, comment, and share our videos with your content with your friends and family. Disclaimer. The content of this video is based on credible publicly available information and is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. One Africa News does not promote hate, violence, misinformation, or political unrest. Our goal is to deliver thoughtful insights, highlight local voices, and encourage informed conversations throughout Africa.